she get in here? What is she doing? What just happened? We have to shut the whole thing down. And I'm like, I am so sorry. Okay, matching results. I am pleased to inform you that you have been appointed to Morrison Healthcare internship in El Paso, Texas. Okay. 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 Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about applying to dietetic internships because I've been asked quite a bit about my approach to it, and I know that the season is coming up for matches and all that fun stuff, and everyone loves to get a jump start and not procrastinate on all this stuff because it is very intimidating, and DICAS is just a big beast on its own. Anyway, I'm just gonna jump right into it and talk about my experience with applying to my internship, which sounds so weird to say. The main components of DICAS are your resume, your personal statement, your references, and then the section that says awards, experiences, and volunteer activities. That one's really important too. And the most time-consuming part is, if you haven't done it yet, it's the part that says coursework section, and that's when you have to go in and you have your ours are called DARs. I don't know if that's what everyone is called, but it's like your class list. You enter in your grades, the class. It takes a very long time. Anyway, so get that done. You'll feel like you've accomplished a lot, and you should, because that's basically half your time spent is on that. Anyway, I'm going to start with resume. I have my DICAS account up. I also have my personal statement and my resume that I'll talk about. So when I started writing my resume, it was by no means anything good. My university had a career and leadership development center, and I met with them probably 5 times just talking about things I should put on there, how to organize it, because my experiences weren't like the typical headings, I guess, and I didn't know how to put the things I wanted on there, or if the things that I could put on there, I just wasn't sure, so I wanted some like help with that. So if you can do something like that with your campus, then do it. So my resume, like basic things I want to point out, you put your GPA on there, and just because I know people, GPA is so important when you apply to this. It's not the end of the world if you don't have a high GPA. You just have to apply even smarter if you don't, and talk about it more in your personal statement. But my GPA when I applied was 3.658. I was very proud of it. And then I organized my experiences like this. It was education, which was my bachelor's that I was working on, relevant nutrition experience, because my love. And you have relevant nutrition experience. So this was the best way I could describe what all of these experiences were. They were just relevant to nutrition. Some of them weren't jobs, some of them weren't internships. It just didn't fit anything like that, but I wanted them to be on there. So under relevant nutrition experience, I have things like my field experience class, where we did a very mini internship during the summer. It was 200 hours of different rotations, so food service, clinical, community. So it was a very mini internship. Talked about that. I did an internship with Brain Balance Centers, and that was my 3rd year of college. And I should mention that the field experience was also after my 3rd year of college. Brain Balance was a really good internship. It was online. It was just a whole different side of nutrition that I haven't seen before, and I'll link their website below if you want to look into that company more. It's very good. Holistic approach to children who have learning disabilities, ADHD, ADD, they have attention problems, behavioral issues, and it's a very cool program to be a part of. Next one I did is I was a student in this class, and it was Nutrition Counseling Practicum. I did this during my senior year. Basically, we are each assigned a client and we meet with them 3 times. We have 3 counseling sessions with them, and we just do nutrition counseling like we learned in class before. That one was a huge experience that I wanted to let the directors know I had. I want them to know that I had interactions with clients. I have applied the nutrition care process. I've applied different counseling techniques. So highlighting those things that you've actually applied from class to real world situations. When I was doing my field experience and in the hospital, it's talking about the kinds of patients you were exposed to, how you saw interdisciplinary work and how dietitians work with other professionals. It's really important that you see that. So whatever experiences you do have, it's trying to pick out the details that you think a director is going to really care about. So yeah. Anyway, the next section that I have is teaching and leadership experience. This one was also really huge. The first one was an actual job that I had. I was a supplemental instruction leader for Anatomy and Physiology for both 1 and 2, so the entire series. Basically, I led study sessions 3 times a week for an hour. I would do practice exams. It's basically, I took the class, I did really well, and so the year after I applied to run these study sessions and help teach the class. And that was by far the coolest thing because I learned how to communicate with people who learned so differently. Like everyone learns so differently. I learned a bunch about that and public speaking and just teaching other people something that's very difficult. So highlighting, like, if you are working with a group of people, I mean, highlight how you communicate with them, how you've learned how to deal with different age groups, different cultures. You know, you're highlighting how you've grown with an experience in ways that you can also apply to your program. So with being a supplemental instruction leader, I was able to also be a teaching assistant for the anatomy lab. So not only did I help teach the lecture, I also helped teach the lab. And so that was really cool, being able to help with dissections, looking at the slides and the telescopes, just doing the little figures and labs with blood and urine, you know, like all the fun stuff. I also helped run the cadaver lab, so it was just a really great experience, and I highlighted how I learned how to teach in different settings with different materials. You know, when you're a dietitian, you're going to be teaching people about healthy eating, and it's just a huge aspect of what you're going to be doing as a dietitian is teaching people. So I highlighted that. The next thing is just fun. Like, I didn't have to put this on here, but I just felt like it showed a different part of me. I was the music coordinator for the Ukulele Club, and I know that sounds really weird, but again, teaching people about the ukulele, picking music, organizing events, stuff like that. It's just fun. It's not like I wrote a bunch about it, just, hey, I did this ukulele club. Like, that's different and interesting, I think. And then the next section is work experience. I worked as a waitress the past 1.5 years at Bob Evans. So just talking about, I know a lot of people have a restaurant experience, and that's good because in your internship you're going to be doing food service management as a rotation. So highlighting that you have experience with organized chaos, basically. You are good with working with a team, communicating. You've dealt with conflict and, you know, being efficient, working with your other coworkers, and being organized in the setting of food service. The next one I have for work experience is I was just an employee at the University Central Food Facility. So the Central Food Facility is this massive building where all of the food is processed and made, and from there it is sent to dining halls and cafes across the university. So I worked there. It was a industrial sized kitchen, and so I mentioned my experience of working where bulk amounts of food were prepared, cooked, and shipped. I experienced large scale food operations, proper safety procedures, and working with equipment. So those are some really big things. Safety is a huge thing. Just like highlighting those things that you kind of forget about after you leave a job. It's like, what did I actually do? Okay, the next section, I know it seems like I have a lot of sections, but my resume is only front and back. It's involvement and volunteer experiences, and let me tell you guys, I did not volunteer that much, you know, and I was really scared about that because everyone else around me was getting involved with the food pantry or finding some really cool way to volunteer at the hospital or whatever it was. I wasn't doing it, so I was really nervous. Like I volunteered a couple times at the food bank. I just didn't have time because I was so invested in anatomy and physiology. My other job in the food facility, like I did a lot part-time to work, so it was really hard to stay on top of work, academics, and then just to volunteer. It was really hard. And if you followed my fitness journey, I was also doing that on top of it, and the internship I had. So my volunteer experience was quite bad, but I'll tell you how I addressed that later. So I just said I was a nutrition club. I wasn't on any exec board or anything. I just talked about what we did as a club and what I did. Anyway, okay, the last thing for involvement and volunteer experience. And let me tell you guys, I did this 2 times. My first semester of college, just because I was curious about what the club was like. It was a club called Aging and Gerontology Education Society. Basically, we went to the local retirement home and just hung out with the residents there, talked to them, had fun. I only went twice because I was really introverted and scared to go, and I was just really nervous. But I still put it on there because it was an experience that I had, and it was with an older population. And I just talked about how the club helped with understanding aging and how to have meaningful interactions with older adults in the community and develop interpersonal communication skills. So I did it 2 times, and I still put it on my resume because in my other internship I worked with kids, and then I had experience with clinical, I had experience with food service, and now I have a little bit saying I worked with the older community, so I try to round that out really well. And just lastly, I don't know if everyone puts this on here, I just thought, why not? It's certificate, so I'm ServSafe certified, I have my HIPAA certification, and then I have a professional leadership certificate, which I don't really know what I did for that, but I know I have it, so I just put it on there. As you guys can see, I did a lot during my last 2 years, so don't feel too stressed out if you haven't done much, because you still have time, you know? So anyway, personal statement. So I mentioned that I didn't do a lot of volunteer work or getting into the community, and where is my personal statement? Statements of my resume, I kept the same. I applied to 2 places. I know most people apply to more than 2, but I applied to 2 because I had demographic priority to be in El Paso, and this internship was my only choice. And I applied to a distance program that I would have to set up myself just as like a plan B. But my personal statement, I did 2 different versions of it, one for each program I applied to, just because the one I'm in now was a clinical concentration, and The other one was a sports nutrition concentration, so I just focused on different things. So just to like summarize the personal statement that I did, I just did a quick introduction about why nutrition means a lot to me and why I have this passion for it. I don't want to read you the whole thing, but just to like let you know how I tried to draw people into it. It says, in 2001, I lost my dad to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma after a 6-month battle. It was hard, but what we take out of bad times are the things we're able to give back to others. I assumed becoming a doctor was the only way I'd be able to help people. However, once I learned more about healthcare, I started to realize I was genuinely passionate about the lifestyle a person has prior to a diagnosis. I think Hippocrates best summed up my reasons for choosing this career path when he said, "Let food be thy medicine." And if you had something hard happen in your life, that is why you chose this career path, be sure to talk about it. It's really heavy and you don't want to just linger on it. I kept it really short because that is the reason why I'm in it. After you talk about it, I said my dad's passing was difficult, but over the course of my healing, I learned blah, 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 blah. So you go on into that part. So this is the part where I talk about my weaknesses, and my weaknesses are more for like the volunteer things that I was talking about earlier. And I think I learned this from All Access internships, where I talked about my passion for teaching, and then I go into my weaknesses, and then I talk about my strengths. So you kind of sandwich that negative in between two positives. So I said, because I spent my undergraduate experience working part-time and being involved academically, I didn't prioritize my community and volunteer experiences. I hope that by doing a distance internship with Morrison Healthcare, I'll be able to branch out and impact my new community. I'll be moving to a new city I've never lived in before, and I can do so with my newfound confidence and eagerness. So, getting into all those things that you want to work on, I think is really important. Yeah, and then you talk about long-term goals. I think different internships have different things they want you to talk about in a personal statement. And I covered the things that Morrison wanted from me. I don't even know if I mentioned that I'm doing my internship with Morrison Healthcare, but I am. Surprise. Insert me getting my match results here. Okay, matching results. I am pleased to inform you that you have been appointed to Morrison Healthcare internship in El Paso, Texas. Okay. That's a fun video to watch. Okay, anyway, so those were resume, personal statements, overview. And I know I used volunteer and community involvement as that's what happened to me, but if you have poor grades or whatever, you just need to own up to it and don't make an excuse, but do explain what was happening in your life and how you plan to move forward. It's like you're creating an action plan for yourself, and that you did some self-reflecting and realize where you want to be in the future and how you're going to get there, and how the internship is going to help you get there. Because the internship wants you to become a professional in the field, and they want to help you do that. So if they know they can do that for you, that's really good. It's a step in the right direction. So DICAS. The next heavy thing is your references. Ask whoever is close to you. I was lucky enough that I got our program director at our school, the Anatomy Physiology professor, and one of my clinical preceptors that I did field experience with. Okay, let's see. And by the way, my one reference waited until the last week to do it, and I was texting her, the professor, I'm like, where is it? She's calling me like, I didn't forget about you. What do you want me to write about you? Anyway, I want to talk about the section where it says additional information, awards, experiences, and volunteer activities. I put everything in here that I could think of, and if it'll load, I'll tell you. So the ukulele club, music coordinator, giving a description of what you did, nutrition club, my certificates that I said on my resume, work. So under work on my resume, I only put 2 jobs, but I've worked, I think there's just one other job I didn't put on, but it was also in a restaurant in high school. So I put that on here because it was food service. So I just wanted to put that on there. And then volunteer experiences, since I didn't have any like really good ones, there were some in-class events that we did that were just really good opportunities, and I wanted to make sure that I did it. Like volunteer experience, we did a talk about diabetes at a health department fair thing. So I talked about our presentation, who we talked to, talked about my internship with Brain Balance. I just said that was volunteer experience. And then that retirement home club that I was a member of for like 2 weeks. And experience for academic credit, so I was a teaching assistant, the field experience, and then when I had my own client in nutrition practicum. But I want to read this to you because when you write your description about it, using really key words, worked with a client through Ohio University's nutrition treatment program, which provides 3 sessions focused on nutrition counseling and assisting the client in reaching their goals. I was responsible for assessing anthropometrics, medical and weight history, physical activity, and confidence in their ability to make changes. Talked about the 3-day food logs I had them do. I used motivational interviewing, open-ended questions, and had my client create their own SMART goals. So using those terms that we learn about in class in my description, showing that I applied it in some way. I was responsible for reflecting on my own skills as a counselor and identifying areas of strength and weakness to better my approach to future clients. So talking about what you're doing and how it's shaping you and what you're going to do in the future with it. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that, like use that little section to talk about anything you can think of, anything you can think of. When you're looking for internships, you just have to apply smart. Find one that aligns with things that you're interested in. Your GPAs, go ahead where it falls. We had, I can't remember what the resource was, but it was a master list of all the programs and the things that they prioritized most when looking at an applicant. And Morrison Healthcare, I think they prioritized like GPA, and the last thing on their list was volunteer experience. And now that I'm in the program, my community rotation is only a week long, so it wasn't even a big chunk of this internship, which worked out really well. So it's stuff like that. You just have to look at the program details and see if your experiences line up with them. And it's a lot of puzzle and matching, but that's just how it has to be. I really wanted to apply to one in Washington State, but because I have to be here, I couldn't do it. But I really wish I could have. I wanted to apply to it just for the heck of it, but if I got it, then whoops. I want to talk about what happens when you get an interview, because it's really freaking scary. Like, it's really scary. There's no hiding that. and no matter how much you prepare for it, you're gonna be there like sweating, wondering like what they're gonna ask you, if you're gonna say the right thing. My interview was like a Skype video call, and so this is something that only happens to me. Basically, you ask to join the meeting and then the host will let you in. But for some reason, when I clicked ask to join, it automatically put me in the meeting. And the directors were like, how did she get in here? What is she doing? What just happened? We have to shut the whole thing down. And I'm like, I am so sorry. Like, I'll get out of the meeting and we'll try it again. And they're like, yeah, just get out of the meeting. Like, they weren't ready for me yet. And they had to restart everything. And I think I lost a couple minutes of my interview time. But it's okay. Like, if you have a good sense of humor and you recover well, just go with it. I'm not gonna obviously say exactly what they asked me because that's not right. I will just say that they asked me a food service question, like what would you do in this situation? They asked me, I think, a couple clinical questions. You have a patient that's this, this, and this, what do you do next? They asked me a couple questions about my resume. So they asked me about my supplemental instruction job with anatomy, and when they were talking about it, they just wanted to mention it and then move on, but I wanted to stress the importance of like what that experience meant to me, because guys, I would literally like crap myself if I was standing in front of people. Because of that experience, I'm literally so much more like extroverted and social, and I don't think I would have gotten to this point of being this version of myself without that. And so I was just like, do you even know what this is? Like, do you even know what a supplemental instruction leader does? So I had to explain it to them, and they really appreciated that. The fact that they learned something. They even said like, oh, I'm really glad I got to learn something. I got to learn about that today. So that made me feel nice. So they asked me about that part of my resume, and then they asked about, there's no way I can just like say the question, but it was a personal question, and I had a really good answer for it. And I don't know, like, the only way I answered it so good is because it was honestly true, and I've thought about it a lot. I just want to tell you, but I can't. But I think my answer to it was just, it was very good. I'm not gonna lie. And with a distance internship, you want to let them know that you can work independently. You're very self-motivated and driven to be on your own, and you're just good with time management and all the things that you think a distance intern should have. That's what you want them to feel like you have. So yeah, and then they ask you for questions. So I asked like two or three, I can't remember, but always have a couple questions, and it just shows that you know, everyone says just to ask questions. And then I want to talk about like preparing for the interview. I used the all access internships. I think it was 120 practice interview questions, and I went through and answered basically all of them, like practiced what I would say, because some of them you have an answer for, but when they ask you it on the spot, you don't know. So typing up some of your answers. With the Skype interview, I did have like a Word document open with some of my responses. I didn't use it. Like, I practiced the responses enough for when they did ask me a question, I could remember a little bit about what I practiced. It's not going to be word for word. And then I would have my roommate pick 5 questions from the list and just randomly ask, and I would respond, and she would give me some feedback about it. So practice with your friends, your family, whoever is going to do that with you. Because someone else is putting you on the spot and you don't know what they're gonna ask. What else about interviews? If it's a Skype one, make sure you are dressed very nicely. I wore my business suit, so try to be really professional. I always play with my hair. I don't know if I've been doing it in the video, but I always like to play with my hair. Don't do it. Refrain. Refrain from doing it. Like, just be calm. You know, they're just trying to get to know you. And directors are, at least mine, are really friendly and they're really funny. They really want you to succeed, which is nice. But anyway, applying to the internship, you know, it all comes down to strategy and picking a program that you know you stand out in, that matches what you want, and you just gotta hope that it works out. I don't know what else to say. It's just all strategy. I'm not gonna go for an internship that's only takes 6 people with an average GPA of 3.7. I'm not gonna risk that. If I really want an internship, I'm gonna shoot a little lower so that I can be the best, you know? The Career and Leadership Development Center that we had did mock interviews for us. So if you have any resource on campus where you can do a mock interview, it's really good. It may not be exactly like a dietetic interview, but it's still someone asking you questions that are just on the spot. And I think they said to respond in a way that's the STAR format. So what was the situation? What was, oh my gosh, the situation, task, the action you took, and what was the result? So it's very like, talk about a situation you're in, what you did and what happened because of what you did. I remember, because if you aren't familiar with Morrison's program, it's a traditional distance internship. So Morrison is a company that is contracted by hospitals. So my hospital, Hospital of Providence, contracts with Morrison to offer all the services for the Food and Nutrition Services department in that hospital. So that's what Morrison does, and they host interns in the hospitals that they have across the country. So they have different cities and different states, and they just happen to have an El Paso location, and that's where I applied to. That's what I got. But it's funny because when you apply, you can pick your plan A and your plan B locations, like where you want to go. And during my interview, they were like, so you want to go to El Paso because you put it for both of your locations? I was like, yeah, I want to go to El Paso really badly. I'm like, my fiance is in the military and I have to go be in El Paso where he's stationed. So it's just like being honest and real, and like, Morrison wasn't my first choice internship to apply to, but it had to be in order for me to stay with Matt here. So, and I knew that was going to be the case throughout college. I knew I wouldn't know where he would be, and I knew I needed to be the best that I could be. And I had a little freak out going into my 3rd year, like, oh my gosh, I haven't done anything. This is really my last year to do stuff. So I did everything, like the internship, being an SI leader, a TA, you know, all those things. I did like the last year, but you still get it done. But anyway, I knew I had to be a really good candidate for a lot of internships, and I would have to market myself to fit into a wide variety of internships because I didn't know where I would have to try getting into. Yeah, I know the other internship I applied to, Sports Nutrition Concentration, they wanted you to film a short YouTube video that was like 2 minutes long, and you introduce yourself, talk about yourself. That was the interview. They didn't like call or anything. Life, man, it's stressful, but you feel so good once you hit that submit button. And then you just gotta wait for interviews, and then it's over. But you got it. You got it. If you have any other questions, more specific questions, then let me know below. You know what I think I want to talk about now is if you're applying to a distance program, you have to find your own preceptors. That's not the case for this one I'm in, but that's the case for basically all the other distance programs. You want to start, I know some of them don't require you to have them all figured out before the application deadline, but the sooner you start, the better. And I promise you, dietitians in a hospital get phone calls all day. You know, it's not gonna be weird if you call them and ask them a question. I've seen them answer the phone, answer those kinds of questions, you know. They wanna help you, so just go for it. Ask them if they'd be willing to host you as an intern for Dietetic Internship, and, you know, answer any questions that they have, but don't be scared. I got a community rotation here just like in case this one didn't work out, and it was with WIC, and all I had to do was email them and ask. Super simple, but you can call. But start with those easier ones, start with community, get that done, and then move on from there. If you're calling a dietitian in a hospital, you know, ask them if you can what am I trying to say? If you call a dietitian in a hospital, ask them if it would be possible to get in contact with the food service department, and if you'd be able to do your food service rotation there as well. Like, all dietitians know what you're trying to do, and they know you need food service and clinical, so just mention that to them and maybe they'll be able to help you out. And yeah, you just never know. And if they can't help you, maybe the food service department can for your other rotation. So, you know, just call and ask any hospital. It's really nerve-wracking to ask, but you just gotta do it. The sooner you do it, the sooner you get it done. And that's all I have to say. So if you have any other questions, let me know. And it was really nice chatting with you guys for a really long time. And if you've listened this far because you're applying and you wanted to know, then good luck, and I'll see you in my next video.